Hello and welcome. I'm Craig Harrington, and today's topic is the United States' self-destructive economic policy. The United States has been pursuing open markets for over 50 years. The current system of free trade, which is championed by the United States, is one which, as policy, sends labor, resources, and capital overseas for the betterment of other markets instead of our own. In its effort to create an economic community, the United States has effectively created the means through which its own vitality and prosperity have been sapped. The U.S. push toward free trade has been met with a lot of resistance from overseas, despite the claims that we all exist in a mutual, globalized world economy. Europe, Japan, China, and others all follow free trade in name only. Most countries around the world subsidize domestic industry, and they make homegrown employment a primary policy goal. They tie imports up in bureaucratic red tape and institute value-added tax schemes to ensure that foreign goods cannot flood their markets. Unfortunately, the United States pursues just the opposite economic policy. We do not protect our industries from foreign acquisition, and we do not protect our companies from foreign price competition. We have absolutely no governmental agenda for balancing our international trade, and there is no long-term policy in place to keep job growth up to pace with global standards. Our government increases the tax burden of its own manufacturers, and it does so without any of the rebates which foreign companies receive from their own home countries. Worse yet, our government actively encourages the simultaneous insourcing of foreign manufacturers and outsourcing of domestic ones. Our state, local, and federal governments give tax incentives to foreign companies to come here and compete against and defeat American industrial titans, while giving none of the same benefits to its own domestic companies. Our policy has been to give as many competitive advantages to foreign producers as possible, and then sit back and watch as they put our industries out of business. To combat the collapse of domestic manufacturing here in the United States, the government encourages the outsourcing of capital, labor, and production overseas via various regional free trade agreements, particularly the North American Free Trade Agreement. Our leaders think that so long as a company is based in the United States, it doesn't matter where the production and the job growth is. It would be fine that GM and Ford produce cars in Canada and Mexico if those profits came back to American workers. But instead, those profits go to the executives while the workers lose their jobs as part of the transition. Our leadership has a fundamental misunderstanding of basic economic principles. They either lack the ability to comprehend sustainable business models, or they refuse to adhere to them. No other country on earth would penalize its own workers for having the audacity to demand a living wage, but that is precisely what happens here in the United States. Our workers earn, and for the most part deserve, high wages, thus driving up the price of their production. Instead of subsidizing these companies through some sort of VAT rebate system, the government just tells them to cut costs or increase efficiency. The best way of doing this is by relocating overseas. In the end, the goods are still being produced, so the government thinks it has achieved some marked success. But the reality is that in exchange for slightly cheaper goods, we sacrificed our own employment. Most countries penalize outsourcers unless they bring some benefits back home, and most countries actually enforce corporate tax laws so as to guarantee that foreign-made profits are put to good use. In the United States, we refuse to penalize companies which shell American workers and relocate jobs overseas. And at the same time, our spineless government allows the major corporations to simply ignore tax codes, allowing executives to hide away billions annually, which could otherwise be put to use propping up the greater economy. Every other developed economy in the world is an active participant in a very real trade war, which is waging around the globe. They constantly check and balance one another's actions so as to guarantee their own stability. Meanwhile, the United States continues to simply wander directionless through the minefield. On behalf of concerned citizens, I'm Craig Harrington with EconomyInCrisis.org News.
Wake up, America! Open up your eyes! Wake up, America! Wake up!
Produced by EconomyInCrisis.org.